Drake Keeler of IX Basketball made an X post that read, Kurt Miller said he's already received more calls about potential trades for the number 1 pick in the upcoming draft than he did in the lead up to the 2025 draft. So
teams across the league are already making calls, and not just for any draft pick. They're targeting the number 1 overall pick in the 2026 WNBA draft. Dallas Wings GM Kurt Miller just dropped a major revelation. He's getting more trade inquiries for this year's top pick than he did before either of the last 2 drafts. And the reason? He said it directly, Caitlin Clark changed everything. Her impact has completely reshaped how franchises value draft assets. Teams now believe the next generational star could redefine their entire organization, and that possibility is driving unprecedented interest in the top selection.
There was not going to be a trade. Paige was not going to be traded, but it will be interesting, and it makes our job fun to listen to those calls that come in for the number 1 pick, and we'll do what's best for our franchise. So teams are calling about the number 1 pick more so this year than in the past, because when the Indiana Fever got the number 1 pick, there was no point in you calling the Indiana Fever. They were never trading away the number 1 pick, which was Caitlin Clark.
Listen closely to what Miller actually revealed. When the Indiana Fever held the number 1 pick in 2024, nobody even called. Everyone knew Caitlin Clark was the guaranteed top selection, and Indiana wasn't trading that pick under any circumstances. The same thing happened in 2025. Dallas owned the first pick. Paige Bueckers was the obvious choice, and Miller's phone stayed silent. But this year? Completely different story. Teams are circling because there's no single, undeniable generational superstar at the top of the 2026 class. And when there's uncertainty, there's opportunity. After the draft lottery on November 23rd, Dallas secured their second straight number 1 pick, and they now have options. UConn's Azzi Fudd, USC's Kiki Iriafen, UCLA's Lauren Betts, Notre Dame's Olivia Miles, and more. And that uncertainty is exactly why teams are calling this time.
See, even in this mock draft, so there's a mock draft here on ESPN, right? And even in this mock draft, they have the Dallas Wings taking Azzi Fudd with the number 1 overall pick. Now, I do like Azzi Fudd. She has gotten better to me. I didn't know. She definitely started shooting the ball. I saw her shoot the ball off the dribble a little bit better. But for the most part, she's a catch and shoot.
The latest ESPN mock draft already projects Dallas selecting Azzi Fudd with the number 1 overall pick, and on paper, it makes perfect sense. She's the former UConn teammate and girlfriend of Paige Bueckers, and reuniting them in Dallas would create instant chemistry and a massive marketing boost. Fudd's shooting has jumped to another level this season. She's developing more off-the-dribble creation, though she still thrives primarily as a catch-and-shoot weapon. At number 2, Minnesota is in position to land Kiki Iriafen, and that could be a franchise-altering addition. Picture this: Nafisa Collier, Alana Smith, Courtney Williams, Kayla McBride, and Bridget Carlton, already one of the most complete cores in the WNBA. Now add Iriafen, a versatile forward who can score from all 3 levels and defend multiple positions. That's not just a playoff team. That's an instant championship contender. Seattle holds the number 3 pick, and Olivia Miles fits perfectly. Pairing her with Jewel Lloyd gives the Storm their point guard of the future next to one of the league's elite scorers. That combination becomes a long-term foundation, the kind you can build around for the next decade.
I'm not like super sold on Azzi Fudd as the number 1 pick, but Dallas Wings, it makes sense. Our fam would make the most sense to me. Lauren Betts would make some. I'm not a Lauren Betts guy either, by the way. So, but I get it if they do it. You want to get a big, I get it. Me personally, I would go our fam over Lauren Betts any day of the week. I personally like Flau'jae more than Azzi Fudd, but
Washington holds the 4th pick in this mock draft, and they're projected to take Lauren Betts. Now this is where things get interesting. Betts is a true 7-foot interior force who controls the paint, rebounds at a high level, and alters shots. But the real question is fit. Washington already has Aaliyah Edwards, a physical, skilled interior scorer who showed major promise as a rookie. Pairing 2 traditional bigs could clog the lane and create spacing problems instead of solving them. At number 5, Chicago is projected to select Sonia Citron from Notre Dame, a smart, polished two-way wing. But here's the storyline nobody is addressing. Where does Angel Reese fit into any of this? Her relationship with the Sky deteriorated fast after her public criticism of the team. Once she aired those frustrations, the front office mentally checked out on building around her. You don't draft another young forward with high upside and still pretend Reese is the long-term centerpiece. Something and someone will have to give.
You have to take her, but I don't love Lauren Betts next to Kiki Area-Finn. And I like the other big they got. She wear the red hair sometime, light-skinned chick with the tattoos. I just blanked on her name. My apologies. But she's nice. But I mean, if Lauren Betts is there at 6'7", I guess you got to take her. Flau'jae, see. Now, the Chicago Sky have to get rid of Angel Reese. You can't bring in Flau'jae Johnson and still have Angel Reese when we know they don't really click like that anymore.
Which brings us to the real intrigue here, because out of nowhere, Dallas is holding the single most valuable asset in the entire draft, the #1 pick. And unlike the past 2 years, when their phones stayed mostly silent, this time teams are calling nonstop. The big questions now are simple. Who's calling? And what are they willing to offer to move up to #1? The most aggressive and arguably the most logical suitor is Chicago. They own the 5th pick, but more importantly, they have Angel Reese, the 2024 Rookie of the Year. Reese is a star, but her relationship with the Sky has clearly fractured. There's tension, frustration, and a growing belief that both sides might benefit from a fresh start. That's why a blockbuster proposal makes perfect sense. Angel Reese plus the #5 pick for Dallas's #1 pick. For Dallas, that's a dream scenario. They get a proven, high-impact player who already produces at a level you hope a top pick might reach. And they still keep a top 5 selection. For Chicago, they hit reset, remove the drama, and gain full control of the draft board. The motivation lines up perfectly, and it explains why Dallas is fielding calls they never got before. But Chicago isn't alone. Minnesota is another team that should absolutely be in the mix. They hold the 2nd pick, expected to become Kiki Area-Finn. But what if the Lynx believe Azzi Fudd is a better fit for their system? What if they value elite shooting and floor spacing more than versatility? Minnesota could offer the #2 pick, future assets, and possibly a veteran contributor. Dallas would move down just 1 spot, still land an elite prospect, and stack long-term value point 2 teams. 2 different strategies. 1 pick that could reshape the entire draft.
Surprised if Chicago are trying to trade Angel Reese for the #1 pick. The Chicago Sky are probably trying to pair Angel Reese and not this #5 pick, but Angel Reese and another pick for the #1 pick. Send Angel Reese to Dallas, get him another pick, or send Angel Reese and #5 to Dallas, and you get the #1 pick. Something, I don't know, but I think the Chicago Sky are definitely one of the teams putting in calls.
Now here's why all of this matters far beyond simple draft positioning. The WNBA is stepping into a pivotal expansion era. New teams are on the way, and with that comes expansion drafts that could reshape rosters league-wide. In moments like this, having multiple high-value assets, whether they're premium draft picks or young players still on rookie contracts, gives a franchise both protection and flexibility. If Dallas decides to move the #1 pick for Angel Reese and Chicago's 5th pick, they instantly secure 2 young, controllable lottery-level players for years. That's not just a roster upgrade, it's strategic insulation ahead of expansion. The same logic holds if they strike a deal with Minnesota and stockpile future picks. It's all about building a cushion of valuable pieces that can either be protected or leveraged when the landscape shifts. And that brings us back to the Caitlin Clark comparison Miller made. Clark wasn't just untradeable because of her game, she was untradeable because of her cultural gravity. She changed Indiana's franchise value overnight. Paige Buchers may not be quite at Clark's historic level, but she's still a massive draw with proven star power and a huge following.
Try to get rid of Angel Reese. Here it says Toronto Tempo getting Tania Latson, Cody McMahon, Gianna Neepkins. Okay, they don't have that girl from Maryland in here no more. Good, because she stinks. Kiki Rice, I'm not sold. I'm not sold. But this is very, very interesting here, man. Get down in the comments. Let me know what y'all think about this.
Currently, none of the 2026 prospects have reached that level of prominence yet. AZ Fudd, while talented and known from UConn, hasn't garnered the same attention as Clark. Kiki is highly skilled, but lacks the national media spotlight, and Lauren Betts excels in college, but hasn't broken into mainstream awareness beyond basketball circles. Olivia Miles shows promise, but is still recovering from injury concerns. The absence of a clear, transcendent star makes this draft pick particularly flexible. Unlike Indiana's hold on Clark or Dallas's with Booker, Miller isn't sitting on a golden ticket. Instead, he has a valuable asset in a relatively balanced draft class, which is when savvy general managers start exploring trade options. Another key factor rarely discussed is Dallas's existing roster. They already have Paige Bueckers as their franchise cornerstone. Adding AZ Fudd would create a dynamic duo, but it's not critical for their long-term success, unlike acquiring a true star. Dallas can thus afford to be strategic because they're building around an established foundation rather than seeking one. From a league-wide perspective, this draft class is unprecedented in terms of capital interest. Historically, teams with top picks chose the obvious options or made minor trades, but now front offices are becoming more sophisticated, embracing bold moves and asset management strategies reminiscent of the NBA's approach. Curt Miller's mention of Caitlin Clark wasn't accidental. It signals to other teams that he understands the distinction between a generational talent and a tradable asset. It's a clear message that his team is open for business and willing to listen, reflecting smart, strategic thinking that could reshape how the league approaches drafting and trades. Think about what happened when Caitlin Clark arrived in Indiana. The Fever went from an overlooked franchise to must-watch television almost instantly. Games sold out. Arenas were packed. Viewership records shattered. Clark's rookie season generated more revenue, media attention, and mainstream interest than anyone in the league anticipated. That's the kind of transformational impact that makes a draft pick completely untradeable. You're not just selecting a player, you're reshaping the entire financial architecture of your franchise. Paige Bueckers won't reach Clark's unprecedented level, but she will still bring a major economic boost to Dallas. She's already moving tickets, driving merchandise interest, and elevating the franchise's national profile before even stepping on a WNBA floor. Dallas made the right decision last year. Keep the pick, take Bueckers first overall, and anchor the franchise around a star with undeniable cultural pull. But this year is different. Aaliyah Fudd is very good, potentially great, but she's not shifting league economics. The same goes for Irian, Betts, Miles, and the rest of the class. They're high-level basketball players who will carve out strong WNBA careers. Several may become all-stars, but none bring the seismic brand power That's why Dallas holds real leverage. They can draft Fudd and create a UConn reunion storyline with Bueckers, a pairing that would have genuine marketing appeal and could form an elite backcourt for years. Or they can move the pick, collect multiple valuable assets, and accelerate their rebuild in a completely different direction. Chicago remains the most logical trade partner. Angel Reese averaged 13.6 points and 13.1 rebounds as a rookie in 2024, elite numbers by any metric. Yes, her relationship with the Sky deteriorated, but that doesn't diminish her talent or her potential impact on a new team. If Dallas can land Angel Reese plus the 5th pick, they instantly gain an impact player who complements Paige Bueckers' skill set. Reese brings rebounding, energy, interior scoring, and defensive toughness, all areas that elevate a guard-driven star like Bueckers. And with the 5th pick, Dallas would still be in position to select a lottery-level talent such as Sonia Citron or whichever prospect they value most. For Chicago, the move makes sense too. Trading Reese while jumping from number 5 to number 1 gives them a clean reset and allows them to draft their preferred cornerstone. Maybe they want Aaliyah Fudd's shooting. Maybe they prioritize Aaron Finn's versatility if Minnesota grabs Fudd at number 2. Either way, they get to build a new foundation without the lingering tension of the Reese situation. The Minnesota angle is more speculative, but still very real. If the Lynx believe Fudd is a better long-term fit than Finn, they could offer Dallas a future first-round pick along with the second overall selection. In that scenario, Dallas drops just one spot, takes Finn, and secures an extra first-rounder for future flexibility. Minnesota walks away with the exact player they want. Both teams benefit. All of this becomes even more interesting when viewed through the lens of expansion. With new WNBA teams on the way, rosters will inevitably lose players to expansion drafts. That makes asset accumulation more important than ever. Teams need multiple young players on rookie contracts to protect their core without sacrificing depth. They need controllable talent that can develop, absorb the loss of a veteran, or be moved in strategic trades. In an expansion environment, every asset matters. Dallas understands this. Latricia Trammell and Greg Miller operate with long-term vision, and Miller has enough experience as both a GM and coach to think several moves ahead. If he can flip one premium asset into 2 or 3 strong pieces, he's creating roster flexibility that pays off for years, not just this season. And here's what truly changes the calculus for Dallas: Paige Bueckers. She's good enough that Dallas doesn't need to hit a home run with this pick. Indiana needed Clark to be everything. Dallas already has their franchise star. This pick is about optimizing the ecosystem around her, not saving the franchise. That's why Miller can entertain real offers instead of immediately shutting down conversations. He's not guarding a once-in-a-generation asset. He's evaluating whether any trade improves his roster more than simply drafting FUD. The next few months leading up to the April draft will show us which teams are truly serious about making a move. Chicago feels like the most natural fit. They have motivation, need, and the assets to get a deal done. Minnesota shouldn't be overlooked either. If they believe one prospect is significantly better than the other, they have both the second pick and future draft capital to make an aggressive offer. And don't sleep on Washington. With a 4th pick and multiple movable pieces, they could absolutely try to jump the line if they view Aaliyah Fudd or Aaron Finn as the missing piece to their rebuild. What we're watching is the WNBA draft market finally maturing. Front offices are becoming bolder, more creative, and more willing to push chips in. The Clark and Bueckers eras taught teams 2 things. Generational stars are untouchable, but everything else is open for negotiation. That lesson is reshaping how GMs operate. So, will Dallas actually trade the pick? Miller has said they'll do what's best for the franchise, classic GM language for "we're taking calls." And they will. All the way up to draft night. They'll evaluate every legitimate offer and decide only if something clearly outweighs simply selecting FUD. If Chicago puts Angel Reese and the 5th pick on the table, that's a serious offer. If Minnesota adds a future first-rounder to swap the 2nd and 1st picks, that deserves real consideration. But if nothing blows them away, Dallas can stay put, draft FUD, promote the UConn reunion with Bueckers, and form one of the league's most promising young backcourts. Either way, the fact this conversation is even happening shows how far the league has come. 3 years ago, teams weren't aggressively pursuing top picks. Now, calls roll in before the lottery balls stop spinning. That's real progress, front offices finally treating draft assets like the premium currency they are. So what do you think? Should Dallas take Aaliyah Fudd and ride the UConn connection, or trade down for a haul of assets? And if you're Chicago, how much are you giving up to move from number 5 to number 1? Drop your thoughts below and hit that subscribe button. This draft is shaping up to be far more dramatic than anyone expected.